Chapter 35. Except for Susan Sturgess, who had to bring Virginia and the boys to Satchel Hill, Garth and Amanda McKee were the last to pull out of the farm. Esmeralda was with them for lack of space in the Cherokee. Garth and Amanda were dropping her off at the Colonial on their way home. They chose to stand by their daughter-in-law and their grandsons as a sign of unity. Not everyone was happy about Chris keeping the farm, but not everyone was old enough to remember Caleb Milliken. The town needed to see that the McKees were united and ready to stand against anyone who decided to challenge Chris's rights. Of every conceivable scenario, this choice afforded the most significant chance for healing. Garth decided, although Chris didn't play baseball, and he didn't express the rough and tumble traits Garth respected, his first grandson had courage enough to make him proud. Part of him lamented not spending more time with him as a child. It was a small part when compared to the realization both of his grandsons possessed everything he loved about their father. When they buried Thomas in the morning, Garth wanted his last words to his son to reflect how proud he was of him, too. Virginia watched their headlights disappear up Milliken Road. She reflected on the McKees. She felt lucky to be part of their family. She felt their pride as she felt their pain. She would miss her husband forever. She asked the boys to help her get loaded into the Cherokee as soon as they were out of sight. Adam was quick to oblige. He was a wisp of a boy in her eyes. Virginia looked at him lovingly. Her heart was so open to him. Adam blushed. She knew nothing about him yet, only that Jeremy and Detective Shooter insisted he was there to help. She wondered how much help so fragile a boy could be. He had a good heart, though. She sensed that about him. Since tragedy brought out the best in people, she decided he was another of God's miracles. Adam hefted her out of the wheelchair. He smiled and set her gently in the front seat of the Cherokee. Virginia stared at him, her eyes wide with surprise. She reached out and took his hand. It was soft and warm to the touch. "When we get home, you'll explain this to me?" It was an instruction more than a question. He looked her in the eye. Virginia gasped as the light reflected off his silver corneas. She reached up and put her hand on the side of his face. "Those aren't contacts, are they?" she whispered, "like they told us?" Adam lowered his head and shook it. "No, ma'am," he replied. "They're not." Virginia kissed his cheek. It was softer still. The muscles in his face were firm and tight. She brushed back his soft black hair. Adam felt the heat of his blush grow. He folded up her wheelchair. Craig took it and set it in the back of the Cherokee. Adam climbed into the first seat next to Chris and Dabney. Derek got in next, sandwiching him in the middle. He looked at the redhead, who greeted him with curious, fiery green eyes. Adam's expression softened at the sadness in them. "My pack brother Oliver has green eyes like yours." Derek replied, "My mom used to say the color belonged to special people." Adam nodded. "Your mom was right." He held out his hand. "I'm Adam Fields." "Derek Mellon," Derek said proudly. He shook Adam's hand. "We call him Lobster Boy," Jeremy said, climbing in the back with Mickey. Craig shut the door and got in next to him. Mickey, the smallest, grunted as he wriggled around for space. Derek rolled his eyes. "Lobster Boy?" Adam asked. "Just wait until you see him blush," Chris remarked. He elbowed Adam. "It's hilarious." Adam looked at Chris with genuine respect. He sniffed him covertly. He liked the way you smelled, more than any of the others. There was a decency in his scent, a real love for his friends. It reminded him of Cody St. Germain. Adam assumed it was their shared sexual orientation. He sniffed Dabney, too. He decided Oliver was right when he said he liked gay people. Adam wasn't genetically engineered to be trusting. He would take people on a person-by-person basis. He committed the scents to memory, cataloging them in his file of things that were right with the world. Susan got into the Cherokee, and Jack Jr. squeezed into the middle in the front. He looked back at Adam. "Jack Dugan Jr.," he said, nodding cordially. He pointed at the black jumpsuit with the silver edgings. "Neat suit." Adam looked at him awkwardly. He sniffed Jack suspiciously. His eyes went purple with bioscan. Everyone in the van jumped, except Jeremy, Craig, and Mickey. Chris was pressed back against Dabney, who threw his arms protectively around him. Derek's mouth dropped open. "Jesus!" Susan cried, staring at him in the mirror. Virginia held her hand to her chest. "My God, Adam!" "Gee, Adam," Jeremy said. "That was subtle." Craig shook his head and sighed. "Like a fart in church." Mickey looked at him, shocked. "You would do that?" Craig shrugged. "Only if I really had to." Mickey was aghast. "Wow," Dabney muttered. He looked at Adam, awestruck. "This just keeps getting weirder." Adam stared into Jack Jr.'s surprised face. His eyes narrowed to purple slits. "You are not what you appear to be," he said, a low growl coming up from his throat. "Scanning. Stand by." Then he said, his voice full of warning, "Don't move." "Wouldn't dream of it," Jack Jr. cried, holding his hands up. The purple light from Adam's eyes cascaded over Jack Jr.'s entire body. It was so intense, Jack Jr. felt it. He didn't move a muscle. "Genetic inconsistencies detected," Adam growled. "Correlating. Analyzing cell structure. Complete." The light in his eyes dimmed. He looked at Jack Jr. dumbfounded. "Explain why you read like a grown man genetically, but biologically you're only 11. 12, actually," Jack corrected. "Can I put my hands down? I'm losing circulation." Adam nodded. "You all know about this?" he asked. He felt the weight of Chris's shocked stare. He lowered his head. "Jeremy's right. That wasn't exactly subtle." "We know about him," Chris managed to joke. "What about you?" Adam sighed. "I'm just a kid who needs to learn better self-control." "That was freaky," Derek cried. He smiled. "How did you do that?" "I think," Virginia began. She stopped when she saw Adam's face drop. He lowered his eyes, ashamed. She reached back and put her hand on his knee. "Are you all right, Adam?" He nodded sadly. "Emotional responses," he said softly. "I have a problem with emotional responses." He thought about the bus scene and all those dead kids. "It's been a very trying day. I'm having trouble assimilating it all." He looked at Jack Jr. with sympathy. "I'm sorry, Jack Jr.," he said. "I'm sorry, everyone." Jack Jr. nodded, recovering. "Seriously," Derek exclaimed. "How did you do that? What did you do?" "Derek, sweetheart," Virginia said. "Let's wait until we get home, okay? I think we all need a minute." They murmured their agreement. Derek stared at Adam all the way home. Susan started the Cherokee, shaking her head. "Virginia," she sighed, "did we miss the signpost up ahead when our lives rushed into the twilight zone?" Virginia nodded. "I thought so." She pulled out of the driveway and headed up Milliken Road. Susan dropped them off at home a few minutes later. Esmeralda was patiently waiting on the porch. She aimed a suspicious look at Adam. She was side-blind to him. Jeremy felt her discomfort and mentally told her Adam was one of the good guys. Susan made Virginia promise to tell her everything tomorrow. Virginia said she would see her at the funeral, and they could talk afterward. She drove away, wondering where Sandy was. Virginia found him in the living room, waiting for them. He'd spent the evening with his little brother. Sean did an excellent job keeping his mouth shut with their father, even when Sandy rode with them back to the house. He tucked his brother in and promised to come back. When Sean asked the dreaded question, "Can you bring Ian with you?" Sandy sadly shook his head. As far as he knew, Ian was gone for good. "Who's the new kid?" Sandy asked, thumbing at Adam. "Watch and see," Virginia replied. She reached for Mishmash, but the kitten smelled Adam, hissed, and ran upstairs. Adam growled at her, his eyes narrowing. "He seems very special, and he's here to help." Adam looked at her oddly. "Who are you talking to?" he asked. He was fighting an urge to chase the cat. "A friend," Virginia replied. She winked. "We'll tell you later." "Cool contacts," Sandy remarked. Esmeralda made tea for everyone who wanted some, which was everyone. Virginia gathered them in the living room to wait. Since Adam seemed uncomfortable, Virginia sat on the sofa and tried to pull him into her lap. She cried out in pain from his weight on her injured leg. He got off of her quickly and sat next to her instead. This is one story I have to hear, she thought. She let Jeremy go first. Her heart broke as he filled her in on the details of the bus scene. He kept his first encounter with Adam at a minimum. Esmeralda brought in the tea by the time he was through. The look of sadness on her face was profound. It was as deep as the fear in Derek's eyes. Adam knew the facts, but none of the details. Jeremy suggested filling him in on everything that happened would be easier if he could form a mind link. Esmeralda inquired as to why that wasn't possible. All eyes fell on Adam for the answers. He stood up and moved to the center of the room. "This situation being unique, I know of no other way for us to operate smoothly without telling you," Adam said. "We'll be working so closely together, hiding what I am would be impossible. Hunter Bremen is an extreme threat. I can't see how deception on my part will help us find him any faster. It's not like I can hide behind a pair of glasses or change in a phone booth either. For our safety, I think it's imperative we all know what we're capable of." "I wish I could link with you," Jeremy said. "Showing you what happened would be better than telling you. I have an idea, though." Adam replied, "We can get into that in a minute." "So?" Derek asked, sitting between Chris and Dabney's feet on the recliner. He leaned forward. "What are you?" Jeremy rolled his eyes. "Oh, now that was subtle too, lobster boy." He looked at Adam and pointed to the far side of his head. "I could show them if you want." Adam declined. "Thanks, but no. It's my life to share. I appreciate the offer." "Sure." Adam said, "My name is Adam Allen Fields, Wolf Boy 7. Adam is the human part of me. Wolf Boy 7 is the designation of my cybernetic implants." Adam told them everything about the complex and how Dr. Meyer Brandis created him and his pack brothers. He told them about Tom Granger and his intention to use the Wolf Boys as assassins. He explained the exposure of the project to the NSC and how the Wolf Boys fought terrorism now. He revealed how Jack Jr.'s genetic abnormalities triggered Wolf Boy 7 to react as if he were a potential threat. The emotional toll of the day's events and the degree of danger from Bremen left little room for pretense. It was his justification for suspending his prime directive, but deep down Adam realized it was more. Until he met Jeremy, he never believed anyone could understand what he went through other than his pack brothers. Adam never knew he had such a need for acceptance, but if they could accept Jeremy with his mental abilities, surely they could accept him and his cybernetic werewolf. Adam went into great detail about his capabilities. He could run 100 kilometers an hour, With his enhanced reflexes, he could track a bullet and get out of its way. He told them about his optical options, his cerebral implants, and even explained why Jeremy had difficulty linking with him. He said strict encryption governed his thoughts and memories. He told them about his claws. Derek took his hand. He touched his fingers, feeling the channels. He asked how he could bend them. Adam said he couldn't unless his claws were at full extension or retracted. Adam held back knowledge of the Wolf Boy God's satellite or any specific technical data. That would have been a breach of national security. They needed to be informed, not flooded with classified information. The last thing he mentioned was the uplink he shared with his pack brothers. Jeremy said it was akin to the mind links he could form. When Adam finished talking, Derek stared at him expectantly. "Yes?" Adam asked, uncertain what his expression meant. "Well?" Derek asked impatiently. "Well, what?" Derek snapped his tongue and sighed. "He wants to see the werewolf," Dabney said. He smiled sheepishly. "Me too." "Me too," Sandy said. He was floating behind Adam. "Me too," Chris added. Virginia shot him an angry look. Chris shrugged. "Sorry, Mom. Not to belittle the pain you went through or anything, Adam. It's just, I don't know, cool, I guess." "It might be a little disconcerting," Adam said. "Wolf Boy 7 is frightening." "You don't have to do this, Adam," Virginia said. "We'll understand if you'd rather not." Chris looked at her with a patronizing expression. He crossed his arms. She shook her head. "Oh, shut up, Chris," she said. "So, sue me. I want to see it too." She apologized to Adam for her curiosity. "You haven't offended me, Mrs. McKee," Adam said. "Call me Virginia." Adam smiled, shaking his head. "You know how odd that is to me? Growing up, we were never allowed to address an adult in the familiar. Virginia it is." "Come on, Adam," Derek whined. "I want to see the werewolf." "Derek!" Virginia gasped. Adam turned to him and smirked. "You want to see the werewolf?" "Yes, please," Derek replied. Adam removed his sneakers and crouched low to the ground. His eyes narrowed as he began the transformation. He growled, his fangs snapping into place. His fur grew out, his claws extended, and in seconds his Wolf Boy 7 form shifted back and forth, eyeing Derek hungrily. Derek's mouth hung open, amazed. "We are Adam Fields, Wolf Boy 7, Adam growled. He walked around the room on all fours, baring his fangs and gnashing his teeth. Transformation to full wolf mode complete. "Good Lord," Virginia cried. "Holy cow," Sandy exclaimed. "That's amazing," Dabney echoed, stroking his fur. "Wow, you're soft, like one of my ex-mother's mink coats." The boys expressed their wonder at the same time, firing a volley of questions. "Does it hurt?" Chris asked, looking at his claws. "Negative," Adam replied. "It's liberating." "Is it dangerous?" Esmeralda asked fearfully. "Only to a targeted threat, and then we can be lethal." "I'll bet," Dabney exclaimed. "Are there more like you?" "My pack brothers and I," Adam informed him. "There are 7 in my pack." He didn't mention the one Omega wolf. "Is it lonely?" The boys looked at her. Chris and Jeremy cried, "Mom!" Adam lowered his head. "Yes, it is." The boys groaned, rolling their eyes. Except for Dabney and Craig, they knew what it felt like to be alone. "I have my pack brothers," he said. "That makes it easier. I wouldn't want to be the only one." "That's what I think about Craig," Jeremy said, poking him in the side. Craig leaned against his shoulder. "We have a second form," Adam said, and he assumed it. This is semi-wolf mode. Werewolf! The boys cried. Oh my God, that rocks! Derek exclaimed. We are not as fast when upright, Adam explained, but it gives us flexibility in combat and when manipulating objects. He held up his hands. There were small paw pads on his palms. Our paw pads aren't so large in this form. He flashed a wolf grin. It is difficult to drive a vehicle or use a computer with canine feet. Adam changed back and was a boy again. That was wicked, Derek exclaimed. Yeah, I wish he were here the other day, Dabney remarked. The room grew silent. It was a weighty silence, born from the lowest levels of grief. Virginia felt like she should say something, but the world was spinning. Her husband wasn't in the ground yet, and she was already planning to give up the home they built. The subtle nuances of the maroon and black colonial became as loud as thunder. The delicate click of the water heater in the garage, the incessant drip of the kitchen sink bored into her mind. Was she moving too fast? Did she want all the responsibilities she was shouldering? She gazed around the room at the sad faces before her. She looked at Chris and Jeremy, her eyes filled with doubt that reflected hers. She looked at Derek, boy without a world now, and Dabney, thrust into a world that wasn't his. Could he cope? Could she? He and Chris were so much in love. It frightened her. Was it because of the pain they shared? No, it was more. It was the kind of love that lasted forever. She knew that because she shared that same love with Thomas. She saw it in them. Even now, they were holding hands again without even realizing it. She wondered what life would have been like if she and Thomas had found each other so young. What about Esmeralda and Mickey? Darkness surrounded them so completely. Or Jack Jr. and Craig. Did she have the strength to give each of them what they needed? Or Adam? Looking at him reminded her of what Bremen did to Jeremy. What was to come? What kind of life would the daughter in her womb have? None, Virginia decided, if we fail. She broke the silence when the final part of that thought drowned out everything else. We mustn't fail. I'll be as strong as I have to be for all of them. Jeremy, she asked, her expression determined. You said you had an idea about Adam? Jeremy asked, distracted. Realization lit up his face. Oh, right, our computers. Excuse me? Adam asked, not sure what he meant. Well, Jeremy said, the reason I can't contact your mind is that the computer inside you encrypts everything, right? That's right, Adam agreed. Well, I may not know what your encryption keys are, Jeremy remarked, but I can probably memorize another kind. You know, like the kind email uses or something, or streaming. I can talk to machines. He blushed. I call it techno-telepathy. Adam's eyes lit up. I see where you're going. Wolfboy 7 can decrypt any code. If you can learn one and transmit in that code, Wolfboy 7 could reply with the same code. You can see the encrypted information in my mind, you just can't decipher it. All I have to do is encrypt it in a code you know. Do you think that will work? Dabney asked. It's worth a shot, Virginia replied. I say we give it a try. Jeremy led the way into the den. He booted up his father's computer while the others filed in. Derek giggled at Thomas's system start sound file. It was from Back to the Future, Biff saying, Hello, McFly! Jeremy sat down in the desk chair and opened his father's email program. He retrieved the messages waiting for Thomas. He would never see them. Jeremy felt sad. It was so final. Nothing was ever that final before. Craig felt Jeremy reaching for his strength. He gave it to him without hesitation. Adam shook his head. Not email. Something more interactive. A streaming service or a webcam program. Wolfboy 7 has access to several different virtual private networks. Perhaps you could use one of those. You would effectively be logging into Wolfboy 7. Show me how it works, Jeremy replied. Adam tapped into the computer. He displayed the program and the means to access it. Jeremy's eyes glowed. He memorized everything instantly. Installing, he quipped. Stand by. Adam smirked. Jeremy tried to transmit to his onboard unit. Wolfboy 7 said, blocking unauthorized transmission. Adam frowned. Sorry about that, he said. I needed to detect it to authorize the transmission. Try now. Can you hear me? Jeremy thawed Adam. He was careful not to speak the words at the same time. Adam nodded. He opened his mouth to reply, but Wolfboy 7 replied for him. Affirmative. Transmission recognized. Jeremy McKee. Access granted. Access limited to communication only. Whoa, Chris exclaimed. What happened? Adam raised an eyebrow. He said, Wolfboy 7 intercepted the transmission. Interesting. He examined the situation from within and added, it's not allowing direct communication with my organics. You'll have to communicate through it when you're sending something to me, and it will relay the data between us. But it spoke to me, Jeremy insisted. Can it talk to me without speaking? Adam asked, Wolfboy 7, internal communication with Jeremy McKee only. Affirmative, Wolfboy 7 replied. Adam's eyes turned purple with bioscan. Scanning. Stand by. Analyzing communication system. None found. Jeremy McKee does not possess an internal communication system. Unable to transmit. Adam shook his head. His eyes returned to normal. No, not on our channel, he said. Jeremy reads organic thought transmissions. I also need him to hear my thoughts too, not yours. Affirmative, Wolfboy 7 said, analyzing. Organic thought encryption in progress. Stand by. Creating channel. That's better, Adam said. He nodded to Jeremy. It's creating a channel that will allow me to project my answers directly to you. Process complete, Wolfboy 7 said. Host now has internal communication channel. Is that better? Adam thought. Can you hear me? Clear as day, Craig replied. It works, Jeremy exclaimed. I hear you, not Wolfboy 7. Unauthorized access, another voice suddenly said. Only Adam, Jeremy, and Craig heard it. Its voice was similar to Wolfboy 7's, but the tone was different. It was mechanical, deeper, and more powerful by far. It came through the link. Identify yourself. Who's that? Jeremy whispered. Adam smiled. Guess we won't be withholding that information after all. That would be Wolfboy God. His gaze became far away. This is Adam Fields. Identity confirmed. Access granted. Good evening, Adam Fields, Wolfboy 7, Wolfboy God replied. Query. Explain current transmission protocol. It is detecting outside communication with internal unit Wolfboy 7. Input authorization, please. I authorized it, Adam replied. Who's Wolfboy God? Derek asked. It was an ominous-sounding name. Authorization recognized, Wolfboy God said. Define the authorized communication protocols. Direct verbal and thought communication only, Adam said. Minimal access granted subject to approval by host. Protocol set, Wolfboy God replied. Query. Allow Jeremy McKee to access Wolfboy 1 through Wolfboy 6? Adam's eyes widened. Is that possible? Affirmative, Wolfboy God replied. New protocol organic thought encryption recognized. Onboard units are capable of transmission. Range limitation noted. Jeremy McKee must be in range of at least one unit to contact the others. Access via an external network is forbidden. What's going on? Virginia asked. I'm not sure, Jeremy shrugged. It would appear that as long as you are close enough to one wolf boy, Adam replied, you can communicate with them all. Affirmative. Query. Retool Wolfboy 1 through Wolfboy 6 for organic thought transmission? Query them, Adam said. Request access. He looked at Thomas's computer and accessed it remotely. The monitor showed a DOS window open. Lines of code flashed quickly by, scrolling across Adam's corneas as well, and then the window closed. Windows, Adam muttered. How primitive. He turned to Jeremy and said, Turn the speakers up. This could prove interesting. Care to clue the rest of us in? Jack Jr. asked. Adam's linked to some kind of network, Jeremy offered. It looks like I can transmit and receive through it through him. I might be able to communicate with his pack brothers. Really? Derek asked. He shook his head. How can you stand it? Having all those voices in your head, it wigs me out. Wigs you out? A voice asked through the speaker. Adam? Who's that? His name is Derek Mellon, Oliver, Adam replied. Log into your workstation and turn on the webcam. You can see for yourself. I'll be the webcam for this side. Okay, Adam, Oliver replied. Everyone's here. Wolfboy God passed on your access request to us, and we approved it. Adam said, You're familiar with my current assignment? The Colonel briefed us today, Oliver replied. He suspended all other priorities and put the pack on standby alert. He has a good reason, Adam said. I have more information for you. He nodded at Jeremy and pointed to the computer. May I? Sure, Jeremy replied. He got up and moved over next to Craig. Your brother has a very nice voice, Virginia remarked. Thank you, Mrs. McKee, Oliver replied. There was a chorus of snickers in the background. Isn't that sweet? One voice cried. You're just jealous, Edison, Oliver sighed. You know my name? Virginia asked. Sure, Oliver replied. We all do. We know everything Adam knows, and vice versa. Oh, Craig exclaimed, like Jeremy and me. You know about me? Oliver's voice projected sadness. We know Jeremy. And we can relate, too. I'm Conroy. My pack brothers call me Corny. Corny? Derek snickered. What kind of name is that? A pretty cool one, Corny replied. Wouldn't you say so, Lobster Boy? The boys burst out laughing. Derek included. He turned beet red. Adam immediately understood his nickname. He opened the connection to the internet. He typed in the longest web address any of them had ever seen. He entered the appropriate access codes when the page came up. A few seconds later, they had a video connection. Dabney observed it with jealousy. Man, the picture's clear. My webcam is crap compared to that. High tech, Dabney, Adam smiled. He gestured toward the monitor. These are my pack brothers. He named them in order, pointing to each one in turn. Oliver, Corny, Kelly, Edison, Dana, and Mitchell. You're a handsome bunch of boys, Virginia offered. Dude, Dabney exclaimed, pointing at the monitor. Look at their eyes. Me? Edison and Dana asked at the same time. They had red irises. Or me? Kelly asked. His irises were violet. All three, Dabney cried. So, you're all like Adam? Virginia asked. Oliver was the prototype, Corny said, patting him on the shoulder. He's the pack leader. Well, I appreciate your honesty, Virginia said. This isn't exactly the time for secrets. I agree, Oliver said. His face grew long. We're sorry about your losses. Hiram Milliken is a madman. There was a grumble of agreement. Jeremy cleared his throat. There's more to tell, he said softly. Tonight and tomorrow. We're meeting after the funeral. He looked at the Wolf boys nervously. In a minute, I'm going to show you what happened here over the weekend. Tomorrow, I'll show you the history. Edison and Kelly stood in the background. You might want to sit down. It's pretty bad. They nodded and sat on Oliver's bed. We're ready, Oliver said, whenever you are. Jeremy took a deep breath and let it whoosh out. His eyes glowed brightly. Now that's a pair of eyes, Edison cried. Hold on, Jeremy insisted. I need to link up with everyone. He let his thoughts expand until he touched every mind in the room. Craig kept him grounded. Esmeralda lent her experience. Jeremy completed the link and looked at Adam. Are you ready? We are, Adam confirmed. Jeremy sighed. Here we go. The moment the transmission began, lines of digital code streamed across the Wolf Boy's eyes. Jeremy started off slowly from the beginning. He brought them to the campout, to which Virginia mumbled, I knew you were up to something, about the beer. They flinched as they watched Ian die. They clawed at Oliver's mattress as they experienced Dabney's attack. They witnessed Jeremy's transformation, Jack Jr.'s regression in age, the dead boys walking, the incident at Mike Dugan's house, and the final battle with Gunter Bremen. Jeremy gave them all the knowledge he could to bring them up to speed. Adam looked around the room, scanning for Sandy, but he looked right past him, not knowing the frequency. Sandy floated above the back of the sofa. Jeremy finished with Hiram's attack on Derek. When his eyes dimmed, Derek was crying. So were Edison and Dana. Dabney had tears welling up in his eyes. Chris kissed his cheek and held him close. Adam let a single tear fall down his angry face. Oh, God, Oliver whispered, shaking his head to clear it. We didn't know how bad it was. No one does, Oliver, Jeremy whispered sadly. There's more, too, but not until tomorrow, when everyone's together. Oliver's eyes narrowed. We'll be monitoring, he said. I'll make sure the colonel is there, too. What good will that do? Jeremy asked. He's too far away for me to link with. You transmitted your thoughts in a format we can read, Oliver explained. Our onboards can convert that format to video. I recorded the entire transmission. He leaned toward the monitor. As soon as we finish here, I'm going to the colonel. He needs to see this. I say Milliken and Bremen need to be sanctioned, Corny muttered. With extreme prejudice, Mitchell concurred. We all do, Virginia said. We have to find them first. Mrs. McKee, Oliver asked, by the time I finish, every law enforcement agency in the world will have Hiram and Bremen on top of their most wanted lists. We'll find them. I hope so, Virginia said seriously. My boys, all of my boys, are in grave danger. Hiram's already struck at Derek. Who knows who's next? You need protection, Oliver insisted. I'm going to make sure you get it. He nodded at Adam. Until tomorrow, be careful, Pack Brother. I will, Adam replied. Field's out. He closed the window on the computer. We need rest, he said. He looked up. Everyone was gazing at a spot over the sofa. They turned to look at Adam, all at the same time. He asked, confused. Yes? Sandy wants to know if he can sleep inside of you, Mickey said. When he doesn't sleep inside someone, he ends up under the ground, Chris offered. He hates that, Derek said. Wouldn't you? Jack Jr. asked. Intriguing, Adam remarked. He nodded his head. It would be an interesting experience. Tell him thanks, Sandy said, floating toward Adam. I want to see if he can feel me like Chris did when I slept in him. He dove headfirst into Adam's chest. Adam jumped back, surprised. Yep, Derek smiled. He can feel him. Incredible, Adam cried. I can... Yes? Sandy? His eyes lit up. I can hear him. Sandy speaks to your soul, Adam, Esmeralda offered kindly, not your mind. My soul? Adam asked. I have one? He put his hand on his chest. He's warm. Can you share his frequency with me? I'd like to see him, too. He feels so much love for all of you. That's our Sanford, Chris yawned. Frequency shared, Jeremy said, his eyes flashing. Time for bed, boys, Virginia said. We need to turn in. Where shall I sleep? Adam asked. We're kind of sacking together at the moment, Chris said. Dabney and Jack Jr. are with me. We have to get up early and go milk the cows. Since we're keeping the farm, we might need a schedule. And some help, Dabney interjected. We'll handle this within the family, Dabney, Virginia said. We're in too much danger to involve other people right now. I guess you crash with us and Derek then, Adam, Craig offered. He smiled. You're small enough. We should all be able to fit. I have a double bed, Jeremy said. Can your bed handle my weight? Adam asked seriously. Let's find out, Jeremy replied. He kissed his mother on the cheek. Esmeralda cleared her throat. She waited until she had everyone's attention. Once she did, she said, We will plan your training schedule tomorrow. Healthy body, healthy mind. She looked at Jeremy. We will continue where we left off. Mickey has an exercise for you, too. Sure, Jeremy replied. I have something to share with you, too. I figured out how Craig and I can tell each other apart. Indeed? Esmeralda asked, surprised. I will be very interested to know how you did that. Virginia took a moment to measure Adam with her measuring tape. When he asked what it was for, she told him he would find out. Jeremy, Craig, and Derek led Adam out of the den. They climbed the stairs, dodging Dabney's things, which were all over the hallway. Virginia settled back and sipped her tea. It was cold. She made a sour face. Esmeralda hugged Mickey and sent him off to bed. She turned to Virginia with a worried look once he was gone. I'm concerned, she said. What about? Virginia asked. Esmeralda shook her head. I'm not sure. I have a feeling. Something is not right. She went blank for a moment. She sighed. I cannot put my finger on it. It is strong, though. That scares me, Virginia said. It scares me, too, Esmeralda admitted. We have to be careful. She stood and stretched. Right now, I need rest, too. Virginia agreed. Esmeralda left the room. Virginia picked up the phone and called Ashton Taylor's. Mr. Ashton picked up on the first ring. Virginia? He asked nervously. Is everything all right? I need another suit, she said. I'll understand if you can't do it. Don't give it another thought, Mr. Ashton assured her. I'm almost done with the last one. Doing another one isn't a problem. Not for you. I wouldn't be here after closing for anyone else. You're a good man, Mr. Ashton, Virginia replied. And you are a wonderful woman, Mr. Ashton said. She gave Mr. Ashton Adam's measurements. He promised to be there first thing in the morning, said goodbye, and hung up. Virginia eased out of her wheelchair onto the sofa. She laid there for a very long time before sleep finally descended over her eyes.